Okay, so good evening, everybody. This is our 20th session. My God, we've done a lot, haven't we? 20th session. We have done a lot. Yes. Okay, so quick recap. And what I will do is I will use my list. And as always, okay, it's Mr. T that's on my list today, at the top of my list. So, Mr. T, what is an art? What is an art?
Something about agile, something train.
Yes.
Agile
release train.
Release train.
That's it. An art is an agile release train, and it is a train that comprises of different teams. You can have up to how many people? Up to, over 100 people. You can have up to 125 people in that train. And it is a train that has different teams. The configuration is such that we have different teams working towards a deliverable. Okay, that's an agile release train. Okay, another name for it will be team of teams. Okay, team of teams. So if you hear people saying team of teams, agile release train, they probably mean the same thing. So is an art long-lived or temporary, Deji? Is an art long-lived or temporary?
It's temporary.
Temporary? Why is it temporary?
Or is it?
No, why did you say it's temporary?
In fact, I have to be honest, I actually took a guess.
why are you guessing at this stage, Deji? You shouldn't be guessing at this stage. You should know. You shouldn't be guessing at this stage. If you recall, we used some examples and we said you could have an art that continuously delivers. You remember?
Okay, yeah, it's long-lived.
Exactly. So you could have one art that delivers the bungalow, after they deliver the bungalow, they deliver the flats, after, it is
because it's incremental or something, incremental developed or something.
The deliverables are incremental.
Yes.
The deliverables are incremental, be it at the team level or at the program level. Incremental delivery, that's why we say program increment, okay? Even at the program level, it's incremental, okay? And it is long-lived. And this is a very, very important point to note here. In an agile environment, we're looking for stable teams. We're looking for teams that will stay together for a long time, because there's a cost associated with changing teams. There's a cost associated, okay? When you have a team of 9 people, for example, and then somebody leaves, somebody new has to join, it reduces your productivity, because this new person has to be, has to get used to the new team members, has to be taught things, you need to show them stuff, you need to onboard them. It comes at a huge cost of to productivity. So that is why in an agile environment, unlike the traditional environment, we say we don't want to disband a team at the end of a deliverable. We don't want to do that, because we are no longer working with the project mindset. We have now shifted to the product. Please bear this in mind, because this could be an answer to a question at an interview. We are moving away from a project mindset to a product mindset. In a project, let's say you have 7 departments. This is what used to happen. You will pull people from different departments, create a project team, and they will start the project. Once the project finishes, everybody goes back to their normal team, right?
Yes.
That's what we're used to. Okay. Now, the disadvantage of that is that you do not form a team that is cohesive, that is high performing, because people will not invest in trying to form a relationship in this team, because they know that maybe after the project, they are going to disband everybody. But in an agile environment, we put a lot of emphasis on developing a team, getting them to bond, getting them to have good relationship amongst themselves, so that they can really connect and begin to work in a collaborative way that takes them on their journey to high performance. Okay, that is why we talk about team formation, Tuckman model, forming, storming, norming, performing. That is why it is important to us that we can work with this team through these stages, because we are looking for a team that can stay together for a long time. I hope it's making sense now. We are looking for a team that can stay together for a long time. And because we want this team to stay together for a long time and become a high-performing, high-productive team, we invest in their bonding, market of skills, team agreement, team profile, shadowing each other, teaching each other, so that we can be a great team together for a long time, not a temporary team at all. Okay, who is on my list now? Okay, oh, the thing has moved Mr. T away. Okay, so Mr. T has spoken, Deji has spoken. Dele, what is the cadence at the program level? What is the cadence? That is the cycle at the program level.
I purposely stayed muted.
So at the team level, we have 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
So
we
at
have
the
2 weeks at the team level.
So at the program level, what do we have? What is the cycle?
3 months.
Thank you. Quarterly. quarterly. That's it. Quarterly.
Yeah.
Okay. So who is an RT? This goes to Don. Who is an RT? Can Don hear me? Okay, he's unmuted.
Hello?
Yes, Don, I can hear you now. Who is an RT?
Wow, you got me there.
Well, you know what R stands for, because Mr. T gave us the explanation, the definition of what an RT is. You know what R stands for, what T stands for?
Is it release?
Yeah.
What's the T now? Release team or something? No.
Train.
Train engine.
Train. Yeah, we discussed this yesterday.
Yeah, so release train what?
Yeah.
It's a role. It's a role. Release train engineer.
That's correct, yeah.
RTE stands for release train engineer. A release train engineer, I don't know why they've put engineer there, because there's nothing technical about that role. It is just a scrum master at the program level. And RTE is a scrum master at the program level. Maybe they do get involved with some technical stuff, I don't know, for the runway. Anyway, scrum master at the program level, that's what an RTE is. So why is there need for a system team? I think this is going to Franca. Franca, why do we need a system team?
Right. We need a system team in Agile because it's a team that is focused on the Agile development, the environment. And it's the team that will be the team that will support the continuous delivery of Agile.
Thank you. So they support, that's the word I was looking for. They help create the environment, because let me quickly go forward and show you that picture again, and then I'll come back. If you look at this picture, you see the system team is outside of this picture here. It's on the side. That is because they are not necessarily inside the train, if you see what I mean. What they are there for is to create the environment for the Agile release train. Okay, so the architectural runway and things like that. So they are there to create the environment for the development, for the Agile release train. That's what they're there for. Thank you very much, Franca. So the next question says, do you have to implement the entire SAFe framework, Grace? Do you have to implement the entire SAFe framework?
No, I think there's something about some kind of essential SAFe.
Mhm.
I've forgotten. Yeah.
Okay.
That
So there are different layers essentially.
yes, there are different layers. So
Oh,
we can actually implement the essential one.
okay, that's the
Yeah.
lowest one you can
The lowest form,
anyway.
yes.
That is the lowest.
Depends on what we're doing and how many teams, I guess.
And the
Yeah,
organization,
and the
how big it
organization.
is, exactly. So you have essential safe as the most basic part of that framework. The next part will now be large solution. And then the one next to that is portfolio and then enterprise, okay? The what do you call it? The website is there. All the information is there. It's crazy, it's a lot, but it's all there. Okay, so yes, you don't have to implement everything. You don't have to go full safe. It will depend on what you need. Who attends the PI planning? Undidi?
Okay, PI, it would have to be the entire team.
Fantastic. The entire release train and some stakeholders, everybody comes to the PI planning. The entire, all the teams within the train, which is why it's usually a big meeting, isn't it? Because everybody
Yes.
attends this meeting. Yeah. Your business segment owners, your critical stakeholders, they are there. Okay. Can the teams within an art use different frameworks? Henry, can the team, so you know in a release train, you have different teams inside. Can they use different frameworks? For example, can one be using Agile, Scrum, another one Kanban, another one XP? Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay.
Some teams can use Kanban to deliver their deliverables,
Okay.
while others can use Scrum. It's possible. Just at the end of the day, they just need to align.
Very good. They need to align. And that is why they're doing the PI planning, so that they can align. Okay. Do you still need a retrospective at the team level? Let me see, who haven't I called? Felicia, can you answer that question by any chance?
Yes, I can. Yes, you do. You do need you still need it at the team level because retrospectives within multiple teams do not replace the ones on the team level. So I personally, I think we need it.
Very good. We still need that retrospective within the teams. And of course, as part of the program level inspect and adapt, we have another, opportunity to inspect and adapt, which is essentially your retrospective at the program level. Thank you very much for all those answers. Good recap there. So yeah, PI planning, it happens every 3 months, every quarter, and it is, it says the team of teams, which is an art, are working towards a common goal here. Just like an agile, that was supposed to be team, just like an agile team needs to plan for their sprint, an art needs to plan for a program level increment, deliverable or solution. So it's all about, yes.
Mary, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, about the product.
Yes.
Product mentality. What do we call it? Yes.
Product mindset.
Yes, product mindset. I have heard, I've been taught with KG that a product mindset also is essential because the product is never deemed a finished thing.
Exactly.
It keeps incrementing because you could transformations and all sorts of things happen with updates in technology. Sorry, noisy background.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is why you have a roadmap that is constantly changing. That is why we say your roadmap is not fixed. And why are we getting feedback? We are getting feedback so that we can adapt to the needs of the customer, right? So every time you release something out there, take for example, you have an app, you release an app, you will have an admin portal. You will know how many people have downloaded your app today. You will know which features are used the most on that app, okay? And based on, and then sometimes you are even asking them for feedback, okay? That is why you see ratings on a lot of features these days, okay? So as that information is coming in, you are improving. Your product is evolving. That is the right word, actually. Your product is evolving based on the feedback that is coming in. Just like when you look at an iPhone, look at where iPhone is coming from. Okay, if you line those all the versions up, look at the difference of what you have today compared to where they're coming from. So you are totally right. A product will evolve, and that is why it was important to move away from a project mindset to a product mindset. But that is not to say you still will not use a project mindset for some kind of projects. For example, we all know that Agile is not a silver bullet. We've said that so many times. So where a project still needs or can even only, for example, there's only one way you can build a bridge. There's only one way you can build a house. Okay? Even if we're talking about advanced technology in construction, where I think they call it prefab or something. Even if you are talking about prefab walls and things like that, you still have to do that sequentially. Okay? You still have to do the foundation, then put the walls together, then whatever you need to do, then do the plumbing and whatever you have to do. So there are some, projects, whether we like it or not, you want to build a bridge, you still have to go the waterfall way because things have to be sequentially. So when we are talking about moving from a project mindset to a product mindset, of course, we are talking about volatile environments. Do you see what I mean? Just like you said, environments where our products are constantly evolving. Okay, so thank you for bringing that in. So we are doing PI planning because we want to align, we want to identify our dependencies, we want to plan how we will use shared resources because, for example, that system team is a shared resource. That system team is a shared resource, okay? So we're going to plan our capacity. It's an opportunity for us to retrospect. It's an opportunity for us to look at our risk, refine our backlog, and of course, demo our increment. So we're going to look at it in a little more detail. And there's a video I will post in the WhatsApp group for you guys to look at. So we already asked this during the recap. Who attends a PI? The entire release train and other critical stakeholders are there, okay? And if we have some team members that are at other locations, we use a video, okay? We use a video to simulate, to sort of give us that feeling of being together in that space. And of course, some coordination is going on in terms of alignment and dependency identification and, communication. High bandwidth communication, that's what this is about. High bandwidth communication, meaning we are right here together face to face as much as possible so that we can get instant feedback, instant answers, and whatever we need from the people who are the main decision makers. Because one thing you must remember is that within our big organizations, all these major stakeholders, they are always busy. It's not easy to get their attention. It is not easy at all to get the attention of, really high level decision makers. So this 2-day meeting obviously is something we have planned that would have been planned 3 months in advance. So they already know they would have allocated those 2 days because they themselves know that, we really need to set the vision here. We really need to make sure that these people have a buy-in into what they are building, creates that kind of environment for them. So they are ready for those 2 days as much as possible. And if your stakeholders are willing to give you stakeholders that are difficult for you to pin down normally, they are now available to you for 2 days. You want to leverage their presence. You want to leverage their presence. The CEO is here. The finance CIM, the chief financial officer is here. The chief information officer is here. Everybody is here. You better leverage their presence. That is what this PI also is about. Let us leverage their presence. Let us get everybody speaking the same language. Let us know we are all going in the same direction, okay? And let us also get their commitment to what we need, okay? We are the developers, product owner, release train engineer, system solution engineer. We want to make sure that all the things we need to ensure that the enabling environment is there for us to do our work is there. So we want their commitment. Okay, and they start that commitment by being present for those 2 days, and you want to leverage that. Okay, so the release train engineer, like I said, is your Scrum Master at the program level. Okay, and this RT is for the most part responsible for making sure everything is flowing. If you remember, at the team level, the Scrum Master is the one that will make sure that all the ceremonies are planned, make sure that all the people that need to be invited are invited, okay, and help facilitate those meetings. For example, even though the review meeting is predominantly for the product owner to run, the Scrum Master is there to make sure it has been booked, everybody has been invited, and he's there to make sure that they have a good experience in terms of the meeting, okay? So the Scrum Master, for example, would have helped with best practice for sprint review, those kind of things, retrospective, best practice, ensuring that the meeting is, well facilitated and efficient. So as an RT, which is the Scrum Master at the program level, you are responsible for a whole lot, okay? So for example, the RT will probably be the person to open the meeting, that is the PI planning. Make sure there's an agenda, as you can see here, PI planning agenda. Never have a meeting without an agenda. Never have a meeting without an agenda. And as you will see very shortly, a PI planning is a highly structured meeting with a 2-day agenda. Highly structured with 2-day agenda, okay? So the RT will then explain why we are here. We are here to gain alignments, commitments, clear set of priorities and objectives, and and we have an agenda that we're going to use. So the RT starts the meeting. Yeah, I just said that, and it says here the RT organizes the meeting, and the RTE presents the vision and the top 10 features in the inaugural session of the PI planning. Now, let us very quickly talk about this. The vision of the product, or it could even be the vision of the organization, then the vision of the product in order for them to achieve that vision of the organization. That would have been articulated by the, businesses and the other stakeholders. There would have been an agreement about where they are heading, but it would have been written somewhere, visible for everybody so that the RTE can then read it out or just remind people what it is. So everybody is reminded of the vision. Why are we here? Why are we here to plan? There must be a reason. We are here because we are trying to achieve that vision, okay? So that is, for the most part, people may already know because obviously they've been working on the features, but as part of this meeting, it is reiterated. Now, when we talk about 10 features, let me go to that diagram. In this diagram here, if you look very closely, you will see what we call IP iteration. This is innovation and planning iteration. It is called the innovation and planning iteration. During this iteration, so which means it's a 2-week period. During this period, there's a lot happening. We'll come to see all the stuff that is happening. But one of the things that is happening here is that the teams, so all the various teams, okay, all the various teams in the train are already thinking of the PI planning. They are already thinking of the PI planning. Now, let us come back to our project. We have a roadmap. Before our next sprint, what do? We ask Grace, what is the next priority? She tells us what her next priority is. Right now, we are working on international student. We didn't just pick any random stuff. She told us what she wants because she's the product owner. She has a vision that she wants us to contribute to. Now I'm talking at the team level now. So that vision is what is driving the decision Grace is making. She's not just making a decision out of thin air. She's not. She's constantly communicating with the stakeholders. So the vision for the organization is what is driving the decision Grace is making in terms of priority and value. And that then determines what we work on as a development team. Exactly the same thing is what is happening at the program level. Okay? Because if you look at an organization, portfolio level, program level, team level, the instruction comes from top to bottom to say, okay, we are developing oranges. When we get to the program level, it still has to be oranges we are developing because that's what we want, that's our vision, that's what we're working to. By the time it comes out to the team level, it still has to be oranges. How we develop that orange might vary, but we are developing orange or oranges. That is the point. It cascades downwards. So what we develop, as we now report it back upwards, must align to the vision. It must align to the vision. So this iteration, innovation and planning iteration is a very important part of your 3 months period. We cannot allow you use that period also for development. Otherwise, it means you have not left any buffer for other things. We need a buffer. Just like if we come back to the team level, what have we said so many times? Can somebody remind me? If your velocity is 100, what are you not supposed to do? Can somebody remind us? Let us say your velocity is 100. What are you not supposed to do? Anybody?
Have stories that are more than 100.
That is one. You don't want to add stories that are more than 100, but there's something else you mustn't do with all your capacity.
You cannot plan your stories that you use for your velocity.
That's it. What else are you supposed to use your velocity for?
For training.
That's it. Training.
And continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement, yeah.
Exactly. And then what else? Technical debt.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Technical debt. Exactly.
And contingencies.
Contingencies. Thank you. Contingencies. So your velocity is 100. The product owner wants you to use all the 100 for her products. That is the reality. That is the truth. That's what the product owner wants, because the product owner can't wait for you to just continue doing all the things on the backlog. The product owner would want you to use all your 100 velocity for their products, for their stories. But as a Scrum Master, you are saying, we need time to work on technical debt because our technical debt is piling up. We need time for continuous improvement. Otherwise, we will not be improving as a team, technically and otherwise. That is why you are the Scrum Master, to make sure these things are happening. Otherwise, the product owner will bombard the team and exhaust the velocity just on their stories, okay? The same thing goes for the program level. At the program level, remember, if we are talking about 3 weeks, then that means we can say we have 6 sprints, if you like. Let us just, we have 6 cadence of 2 weeks, if it's 3 months. What normally happens is they will take 8 weeks for development. So which means 4 sprints. 4 sprints for development, and then there will now be another 2 weeks for IP iteration. So in that 2-week period that is innovation and planning, it is also an opportunity to do a spike. You remember we're talking about a spike the other day? What is a spike? Can anybody remember?
I guess there are stories that are not been, there are too big that have not been estimated. They will need a time box.
You are very close.
Where the development team will need to study the story very well.
Thank you.
Through a time box period.
Exploration.
Thank you. Exploration. Thank you. You got that right, Mr. T. I was looking for or trying to understand the story. So it's like they are exploring this story because we don't understand it yet. We don't understand the story yet. We need time to understand this story. We can't even estimate it. We can't do anything with it because we need time to explore on this story. That will be happening during this innovation and planning iteration. That's what we will use that time for. Because if we say this time, we are going to let the product owner bombard us with more stories to work during this period, we're going to burn out. There will be no buffer to do other things, and it will not make us a great team in the long run. Okay? So that's what that is for. So let me go back. So the 10 features we're talking about here is that during that innovation and planning iteration, we are already planning ahead. So let us call it pre-PI planning. We are already planning ahead for the PI planning. What does that translate to at the team level? Can anybody make a relation to that? What does that translate to at the team level? We are doing a pre-planning. There's a kind of pre-planning we also do at the team level. Can anybody remember?
Sprint planning?
Planning.
No. That's planning.
Integration planning.
No. Before the sprint planning, there's one planning that we are supposed to do.
No,
So it's
backlog refinement.
That's it. Backlog refinement. You got there in the end. Backlog refinement. So what they are doing during that IP iteration is like, oh, let us look at our backlog again before the PI planning. Because you cannot go to the PI planning and you are seeing those stories for the first time. Do you get it? You can't go to your PI planning and you are not familiar with the epics or the features or the stories you are going to be talking about with another team. Am I making sense? You are going to a PI planning and there will be other teams there. And you are there to look at alignment and dependencies. You must have, taken time to look at your epics or features or stories before coming to that meeting. So which means by the time I come to that PI planning meeting, I already know that I have a dependency with team C. Do you get it? Am I making sense? Or is it getting too complicated?
No, yes, Mary, you're making sense.
So when we do backlog refinement, what are we trying to achieve? Let's come back to the team level.
We're trying to break down the stories. We're trying to make sure the stories are understandable and doable.
Thank you.
To make the stories ready.
Thank you. That's exactly what you are doing during the innovation and planning iteration. This innovation and planning iteration. That's exactly what you are doing here. But now we are thinking at the PI level. Now we are saying these are the features our own team will deliver for the next 3 months as part of the larger solution. Okay? I need to, as a team, we need to understand these features, know what is expected of us, and know what dependencies we have with the other teams. We are not the only team on the train. Don't forget that. We are not the only team on the train. There are like 7 or 8 other teams in the train, and everything we are developing needs to be integrated. It's like they've asked the art to develop a bicycle. One is doing the spoke, one is doing the seat. We have to make sure we understand who is doing what and when we are integrating. It's exactly the same thing that is happening at the team level, but just happening on a larger scale at the program level. So during the iteration, innovation and planning iteration, there are a few things that are happening there. A spike could be happening because there's a story that has come into our backlog and we need to do a spike to understand it better before we go to the big meeting, which is the PI planning, so that we can identify our dependencies with the other teams, okay? There's a spike going on there. It is also the point at which there's integration of what we have already developed. Remember, we have just finished a sprint here, okay? We have sprints every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks we have a sprint. At the end of every 2 weeks, we are doing a system demo. Because if we wait until the IP iteration to integrate, we may run into serious problems. We will, it's not even may, there's a very high chance that we will run into serious problems. Because what we should have been doing is that at the end of every 2 weeks, that is why we make sure that the team starts their sprint at the same time. There's a cadence of 2 weeks and they start at the same time and end at the same time. So every single team in the train, they will start their sprint together and end it together, because we want to end it together so that there's synchronization. We start together, we end together, and when we end our sprints, we integrate all the deliverables. We bring all the deliverables together and integrate them to make sure that there are no bugs, there are no defects, there are no issues. So imagine if you are not integrating every 2 weeks. You now wait till the iteration planning before you now do your program increment. There might be serious problem, because the problem that you should have spotted 3 sprints prior or 4 sprints before, you are just spotting it now. And it's going to create a lot of problem in terms of fixing. Okay, it's going to create a lot of problems. So you integrate as you go along, and then for the iteration and for the innovation and planning iteration, you now do your larger integration. That is what you do. Okay, so going back a little bit. So the 10 features, we already know the features we're going to work with. So the RTE will now limit it to 10 features, because remember, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. We cannot do everything. We do not have the capacity to do everything. So the rule of thumb is that when we go into our PI planning, before we go into our PI planning, maybe we had like 20 features or even 30 features. But because we know we can't do everything, we will now, the major stakeholders, they would have had some kind of meeting to say, okay, these are the important features. The product owner, the product manager, the product team, okay? Remember, they are the ones that are really responsible for the product vision. They would have, there would have been some meeting amongst them to say, you know what, these are the things we really, really, really need to make sure we deliver this increment, this quarter. So they will now, as much as possible, based on information that they have gotten, okay, based on their vision, they will now limit it to 10. It's not always easy to prioritize, because they would, did you see that video I sent to you about the features? Because the product owner will tell you everything is important. Did anybody watch that video? I posted it in the group. I think, Grace, you were telling me about it, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I posted a video about feature teams and component teams, I think. Anyway, the gist there is that a lot of product owners will tell you, or product managers will tell you everything is important. You can't take that. Everything cannot be important. Everything cannot be important. So whether they like it or not, they have to prioritize. So the rule of thumb is that you go into your PI planning with 10 features, okay? 10 high value features. That is the rule of thumb, okay? And here is the quarterly PI planning agenda. Like I said, it is a 2-day meeting, highly structured meeting, okay? As you can see, the first one here is the business context. The CEOs, the executives, they will come and give an inspirational talk about this product we are developing, how it's going to make us #1 in the world, blah, 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 blah. Then the product solution vision, the product team, that's the product management team, they too will come and talk about this product, talk about the vision. Then the architecture vision, in other words, the underlying architecture that is going to be used, that one too, maybe they are doing cloud, they are doing SaaS, they are doing PaaS, whatever it is they are doing, they'll come and talk about that, okay? And then the team will now go into planning. They go into planning to, you know, of the things they want to do. They will present all the features, and then eventually the teams will now go into their breakout rooms. So in that breakout room, they are now really looking at what they can commit to. Because don't forget, if we come back to the team level, we also are looking at what we can commit to. When the product owner says, I want you to do this, I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, we then look at our velocity. So things like that is what is happening here. Can we commit to this? Do we understand it? Does it meet, you know, things like that? Do we need to ask questions? What dependencies do we have? We go into our breakout room and then we do that. And then they have a draft plan of what they are going to do. So, and then at the end of that meeting, the draft plan then goes to the management meeting, which they will have at the end of the day. And then the next day they continue again, just to make sure that everything they did before, everything can still go according to plan. They look at their risk. They look at their confidence vote. Confidence vote meaning, can we really commit to this? Can we deliver? They will take a vote. It's usually 1 to 5. 5 meaning, yes, we can deliver this thing in the next 3 months. So if you have at least 3 votes, then that is good. If everybody votes minimum of 3, that is good. If anybody votes less than 3, then you have to question. To say, okay, what is your problem? What issues do you have? Why are you saying you do not have the confidence that you can deliver this? So that is sort of going on. And then if there's a low confidence in delivery, they will look at the plan again to readjust the plan. And then have a retrospective of the actual meeting to say, okay, did we do this meeting well? How can we improve our PI meeting next time? So that sort of thing is going on. So as you can see, it's a very, very structured meeting. It's a serious meeting, because this is where the commitments are made, okay? This is where you are actually making commitments, even to attend to the risk. Very, very serious meeting. So I've talked about this, so I'm going to move forward. So in coming to that PI planning meeting, there are two main things we need. We need the vision, because like everything, we must know where we are heading. Like a ship, we need a compass. So why are we coming together? What is it we want to develop? What is the vision for this product? Oh, they are developing a new app to help us with carbon footprints, so that the environment will be clean for the next generation. Whatever the vision is, okay, we need to know what the vision is. And then you must come with your 10 features. That's why you have that backlog there. So on that backlog, you can have more than 10 features, but you must have identified your top 10 priorities coming into this meeting, because this is not a meeting to come and be saying, maybe it's this one, and maybe it's that one. No. Remember, this is a high bandwidth communication meeting. When you hear the word high bandwidth, it means important people are here. We are all here, and we want to leverage their presence. So you can't come and be saying, These are the 10 features we're committing to, and we're here to have alignment. We're here to identify our risk. We're here to identify our dependencies, and we're here to seek your commitment to the environment that we need. Whatever it is, you have to be sharp and direct as an RTE at this level.
Okay, so this is not the product owner that will do it. This is the RTE.
This is the RTE.
Right.
This is the RTE. Okay. This is the RTE.
Based on what they have agreed with the product owner.
Yes.
Right.
Because remember, there's innovation and planning sprint. That's 2 weeks where a lot of things are happening. During that 2 weeks, I would expect the stakeholders and product owners to have had some kind of meeting.
So this is Scrum of Scrum.
Scrum of Scrum. Thank you. That's what's happening there. Scrum of Scrum. They are meeting up to say, okay, what features are important for us for the next iteration, PI increment, the next 3 months, next quarter. Okay. So by the time we come to this high bandwidth meeting, we know the features that are important to us. We know, because you have used that sprint to do all the prep work for the PI planning that you need. Okay. So the vision, you must know the vision, and we are coming with our 10 top features. Okay. Then you do your PI planning. After your 2-day PI planning, you have 2 outputs, your program objectives and your program board, okay? So if we look at that in a little more detail, each team, based on what they had done during their innovation and planning sprint, as well as the extra work they have done during this PI planning, they will have what we call their objectives. Each team will have their objectives. This is not this backlog where you have user stories. Now, these are high-level objectives. So they will have their objectives that they must achieve for this quarter. That objective is then summarized by the RTE into one document for the guys at the top. Okay? It is then summarized, as you can see, as you can see, all the PI planning is then summarized into one major PI objective for the higher ups. Okay? But at the team level, each team will have their own PI objective that contributes to that bigger PI objective. Okay? We will also have what we call a program board, because after all, this is one of the reasons we've come together, to identify to align, to map how we want to do these things, to identify the dependencies, and to also identify milestones. As you can see here, during iteration 1.2, there's a milestone that will be achieved. During 1.4, there's a milestone that will be achieved, okay? And we can see all the red lines showing where we have our dependencies. All the communication that needs to be going on would have gone on during the PI planning, okay? To say, oh, we have a dependency with team A, we have another dependency with team D. You would have had that discussion with them face to face and, agreed on how you want to go about those things, okay? Maybe you would have said, because of this dependency we have, let us check on each other every 2 days about this dependency. It doesn't matter how you resolve it, as long as it is resolved. So, and you can see the legend at the bottom there, okay? So every team can, there will be a kind of agreement on what does a red sticker mean. Usually a red sticker sometimes means risk. If you are using a red sticker, maybe it means risk. It doesn't matter what is or dependency, as long as you have agreed what color stands for what. And this happened a lot pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, this happened a lot because we used a lot of Post-it notes on the wall everywhere. But now with COVID, people are using digital boards a lot more, okay? A lot more. So those are the two main outputs, your program board and your PI objectives. The input is your vision and your 10 features, okay? And of course, you will identify risk as part of your PI planning. You will identify risk. When we identify risk, there's a structure to managing risk. Have we been able to resolve it? Who is going to own it? Is it a risk that we are going to accept, or is it a risk that we are going to mitigate? All this discussion, some of it would have been, the discussion would have started during the IP iteration. Because as you are preparing for the PI planning and looking at those features, getting familiar with them, you are also identifying some risk. So some of the discussion for the risk would have started during the PI, the IP planning, the innovation and planning iteration, okay? By the time we now come to the PI planning, we must concretely, and I use the word concretely, know which ones we've been able to resolve. Know that Franca is the one that is going to deal with this risk during this next program increment. Franca is the owner of this infrastructure risk. Grace is the owner of the UX risk, or whatever the case may be. It must be owned. It can't just be floating in the air. This is risk we are talking about. It may potentially mess up our project, okay? Now, there are some risks that you just have to accept. Accept it and say, you know what, despite this risk, we're going to continue because it is low risk and because there's really nothing you can do about it, or whatever the case may be. And then there are some risks where you have to actually plan for, you mitigate it. So we use the acronym ROAM, okay? R for resolved, O for owned, A for accepted, and M for mitigated. So we make sure that we do our roaming during our PI planning. Now, I talked about the innovation and planning iteration. And what is the most important thing on this slide is what we have here. You cannot plan work for the IP iteration. You cannot. You cannot plan work for the IP iteration. That iteration must be used for what it is meant for. And that is to give buffer. Buffer for technical debt. Buffer for continuous learning. Buffer for the larger system integration. Okay? Buffer for anything else. It says here, leaving testing or bug fixing to the IP iteration, that also is wrong. That buffer is not for, maybe there's an IP iteration. I can't do the testing. I will do the testing during the IP iteration. No. You start to build technical debt. Your IP iteration is not for testing. You should finish your testing during your sprint iteration, your development iteration. It is not for testing. It is not for bug fixing. It should be used for what it's meant for. It is not a sprint. It says here, leaving integration of the whole system to the IP iteration. As you can see, we do integration of the system during IP, but not all of it, not the whole, because you have been integrating every 2 weeks. If you now develop a bad habit of saying, maybe there's innovation and planning iteration, when we get to that point, we'll integrate everything, you will run into problems. So that IP is not a buffer for you to have to have, should I say, a lack of discipline to how you run your sprint, to say there's a buffer for you to catch up. No. You must integrate every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, and then a final integration happens during the IP. You should not be integrating your system for the first time during the IP. You shouldn't. That's an anti-pattern, and it will create serious problems for you. So if you're a Scrum Master in a safer environment, because you just never know where you will end up. You could get an interview for a safe Scrum Master, and you prepare very well, you remember everything we've talked about here, and you get the job. So you need to be mindful of all these things. You cannot use your IP iteration as an iteration for fixing bug, for testing, or for integrating your system for the first time. That would be an anti-pattern, okay? So your IP iteration, it says here, without the IP iteration, there will be a lack of delivery capacity buffer and that it will impact predictability. When you do not give yourself buffer, people will even burn out. There will be no time for innovation. It now becomes the tyranny of the urgent. Everything is urgent. We need to use this innovation, IP iteration. We need to use it for more products. We need to use it to deliver more products. We don't have time for technical debt. We don't have time for continuous improvement. No, you can't allow that as a Scrum Master in that environment. And we also want our people to rest. You want to give people some buffer, okay? It says here, technical debt will grow uncontrollably. That's what's going to happen. Technical debt will grow uncontrollably because the buffer that you have to tidy things up, to make sure you minimize your technical debt, to make sure you improve in terms of your skills, okay? You are using it to deliver more products. And in doing that, there's no buffer to get better and better. People might burn out. No time for teams to plan demo, to improve together, to bond and stuff like that. So as a Scrum Master in this environment, you need to be mindful of this. Really, 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 really mindful of this. That IP iteration is so important. And then finally, it says here, there's a vote of confidence where each team gives their score between 1 and 5 on how confident they are of attaining the various objectives. If any team votes lower than a score of 3, then they must voice their concerns and are deliberated upon by the entire group. So why? And then one other thing that comes in here is psychological safety. Psychological safety comes in here. Imagine you are in a team and everybody is saying 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. We are confident we'll deliver. Meanwhile, you don't feel they are right. Maybe there's something you are seeing that they are not seeing. Okay? It's so important, especially when you have all the decision makers here, to say, actually, I think this is a 2 for me, or it's a 3, or it's a 2, or it's even a 1 because of ABC, so that everybody can then leverage the presence of everybody, talk about, because you see, when you have everybody around, it means you can tap into people's knowledge. You can tap into people's experience. So it's actually a great place to voice your concerns, because then you can leverage the presence of everybody and get their contribution into solving a problem. And in that kind of environment, you find that things are resolved very quickly, because it's not as if you are sending an email to somebody, you are waiting for them. We are all here, face to face, right here, right now. So it's a great place to actually voice your opinion. So,
Mary, is this like do they do this as an open vote, or do they
yes,
use
open vote with their fingers, just like this.
Okay, all right.
Just like this. They'll say, okay, vote of confidence, and then you see some people go like that, and then you see some people go like that. That's a 4, and then some people go like that, 3, like that. So yeah, it's a vote of confidence. The team objectives are aggregated, like I said before, is summarized, but each team still has their own objectives, sheet, but it is then summarized for the, bigger, on the bigger PR objectives for the portfolio level, okay? And with the business value, exactly. Let me go back. This is done by the release train engineer, exactly. Again, it is the RTE that will summarize. Let us assume we'll have 10 objectives. So which means each team has their own template. It's the same template, but they have their own. Team A, Team B, Team C. They have all their objectives that they have crafted that is contributing to the higher up objectives. So the RTE will then aggregate all those objectives into one document, okay? Now, this is the interesting part. Once this is done, okay, it becomes, should I say, like the compass that we're using. So say, okay, this is the objective we're working towards. But this is the part I really want you to pay attention to. Every team has what we call their objectives. At the bottom, you can see there's a line. There's a line and it says stretch. Stretch objectives, that's what that is called. This BV here stands for business value. And as you can see, look at the business value that they have attached to these objectives. The business value for this one is 10. It is the product owner and the product manager that will go around each team, okay? Remember, every team will have their corner. Every team will have their corner. The product manager and the product owner will come to team A in order to prioritize these items on their paper, on their sheet. So the product owner then comes here, he sees that there are 3 features on team A's objective list. It is important that the product owner prioritizes this feature for the team. So what is happening here now is that this is not story point. I need you to get this right. This is not story point. This is business value. So business value meaning I'm telling you how important this feature is to the business in terms of a number, 10 being the highest. 10 being the highest. So as a product owner, I've come to team A and I'm saying, okay, you guys have these 3 features on your objective list. Please, proof of concept with mock sounds, that's our highest priority. So I'm going to give that a 10. So which means if for whatever reason they can't even do 4 and 3, I'm not saying they won't do it, but let us even assume, at least let them pay attention to that first one. That is also one of the benefits of this business value. Say, whatever you do, just try and focus on business value. So at any point in time, you are working on what adds the most value. So the next thing that adds the most value is 4 here. And then we have 3. So we are working with the first one. We are putting all our effort into the first one first. It is only after we are done with the first one that we now move to the next one that is a 4. That is about objectives. Now, when we come to the stretch, what that one means is that we understand this story. We know the business value, but we will only do it if we have time. Okay, that's why we call it stretch objectives. As you can see, there's a line, there's a clear line there, and it is written stretch. So if we do not deliver this stretch objective, no problem. But if there's time, for whatever reason, time permits us, we'll take it on. We will take it on and we'll start working on it. But it's a stretch objective. So you could get this kind of question during your interview to say, how will you go about stretch objectives, or what does it even mean? So it is what has been, you don't commit to it. You understand the story, all right, but it's not a commitment. It's not the ones at the top are your commitments. You have committed that you will deliver those 3 features. You have not committed to the ones in the stretch section of your objective. What you are saying there is, if time permits, if we're in a position to do that, then we will stretch ourselves and do it, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's a high bandwidth communication. Like I said before, the teams get to hear from the business owners and the organizational leaders about how the PI being planned will help the organization get closer to their overall goals and the envisioned future of the solution being delivered. Having formulated the PI objectives, the teams have a sense of ownership to deliver them. Yesterday, when we had, when we were talking about the conflict resolution of the tribe, I remember Shala was saying that we need to let them come up with their own solutions. This is sort of similar. You are carrying the team along. You are telling them what you want, and you are telling them to go about how they want to do it. And being part of this meeting gives them a sense of ownership. We are valued. Our voices have been heard. So there's a sense of ownership, commitment, and, you know, it's sort of purposeful to them, you know, knowing that what you are contributing to is, you know, it's quite huge, and your voice have been heard. You have been given the latitude to contribute and things like that. It creates a sense of ownership. It does. So high bandwidth environment, you really want to take advantage of that. And of course, you have a program board at the end of the day showing, you know, all the teams, showing all their commitments, their dependencies, and what have you, and their milestones. And this is what your typical PI planning will look like. As you can see, we have over 100 people here for sure. Over 100 people, you're close to 150 people or more. Okay, this is what your PI planning would look like. And as you can see, this is pre-COVID, by the way. This is pre-COVID. You can see some screens there, screens to share documents. And then sometimes if some more people are in a remote location, you will have a video screen, you know, big, huge video screen, sometimes scattered all over the room, just to, you know, simulate that presence and create an opportunity to work together. So that is what that would look like. That was what it looked like pre-COVID. So the release train engineer is a servant leader and operates as a full chief scrum master of the train. The RTE tracks the features and capabilities and release dates. The RTE conducts the PI planning events for each art. The RTE is responsible for ensuring the required stakeholders attend the 2-day event and that all the logistics for the successful completion of the event are in place. Exactly what a Scrum Master will do at the team level. Very, very similar. I hope do you agree with that? Very similar.
Yeah.
Very,
Yes.
very, very similar. And that is really it really today, because when you talk about an agile release stream, you're talking about multiple teams, and this is taking us now to DevOps. We're talking about multiple teams working together to deliver a digital product, okay? Now, when you have multiple teams working, you really must organize yourself properly so that your work has little friction, so to speak. There's not a lot of friction. You are better organized. Everybody knows what they are doing, and then you leverage tools. You use a lot of tools to help you create this seamless experience. So in a continuous delivery pipeline, more often than not, they will be doing DevOps. They will be doing DevOps. And what DevOps means is that we have operations and development teams working together. So every team is made up of development and operations. They are working together, and not only are they working together, the culture is that of DevOps practices, okay? So they are embracing DevOps culture, which is what we're going to look at soon. They are embracing DevOps culture and DevOps practices. That is what is going on here. We call it continuous integration and continuous deployment. If you remember, I said at the end of every 2 weeks, they must integrate, right? They should not wait until the IP planning before they integrate all the work they've been doing for the past 8 weeks. No, that would be wrong. But guess what? Even before that 2 weeks, if they are doing DevOps, they are integrating continuously. So, and this is now taking us to what we call test-driven development and unit testing, okay? These are practices that happens in a DevOps environment. Test-driven development, unit testing. And what does that mean? It means I'm a developer. I will write a small code. Let me check the time. I will write a small code and I will push it into a repository. Okay? I will write a small code and I will push it into a repository. If what I have written is not in sync with what everybody else has written, let me use that word for now, then it will not compile. It will not compile. So immediately I push the code into the central repository, I will get either a pass or a fail. I will get either a pass or a fail. If I get a fail, the good thing about it is that I'm getting that fail now, almost immediately. So I know where the mistake is. So because I know where the mistake is, where the error is, I can very quickly correct that error and then push it again. So once I retract that code, I then push it again, having corrected the mistake. Maybe this time it will pass. That is what we mean by continuous integration. We are constantly and continuously integrating our code. Because let me use a simple example. Imagine you've commissioned me to write a book for you. If I finish writing the entire book and then I bring it to you to review the book, it's more difficult. But if I write one chapter, then I bring it to you. I say, oh yeah, Dele, let us assume it was Dele that commissioned me to write a book for her. I now come after writing one chapter. I say, Dele, review the chapter. It will be easy for Dele to review the chapter because it's just a chapter of maybe 7 pages, as opposed to me bringing the entire book for Dele to review. That's exactly the same logic that is happening here in a development environment. I write a small code. I push it in. But this code that I have written must work well with the one Dele has written, work well with the one Deji has written, work well with the one Frank has written. So as we are pushing our code into the repository, if it does not compile, immediately we rectify it. That's the DevOps practice. This is now taking us to what we call Git and GitHub. You may have heard about it. Git and GitHub. Git is a central repository. Then you have another tool called Jenkins. Jenkins is what does the build. We will come to that. Let me not scatter our brains this evening, but we will come to that because that is what is happening out there. And we will go through it step by step for you to understand it. Just for you to understand it. It's not that you're the one that will be putting the pipeline together for them, but understand it. What does it mean to push in a code? What does it mean to pull out a code? What does it mean to build? And what does it mean when it fails or when it passes? And what are the tools that are used out there? Now we are coming into the cloud technology. There's hardly any decent development team today that is not using cloud. So this training will be incomplete if we do not talk about DevOps. There's hardly any decent development team that is not using cloud services. So trust me, this training will be incomplete without talking about DevOps and cloud services. So we'll talk about, it's not difficult. It's just that there's a lot of information to cover. It's not difficult. So don't even feel overwhelmed at all. And the videos will always be there for you to go back to. We will look at PaaS. We will look at SaaS, software as a service. This Zoom we are using right now is software as a service. Your WhatsApp is software as a service. What document that you are using is software as a service. There's now infrastructure as a service. There's platform as a service. Let me tell you what used to happen. For example, so many years ago, an organization would have a room with their servers in it. Big servers, big machines. That means they have to worry about keeping that server, making sure there's air conditioner there. They have to secure that server. Now we are saying you don't need to put servers on your premises. So now, to start your business, you don't even need so much money anymore because you don't have to go and buy big servers. No, just do pay as you go with Amazon Web Services. There's also Google. There are so many. There's Microsoft. All these web services. Amazon is the most popular and the biggest, I think. So all you have to do, you don't need to buy a server because Amazon has a data center somewhere. Amazon has a data center somewhere. They have already taken the headache of getting a big, center with so many servers. Okay? They have a center with big servers. All you have to, they have to do, they'll just give you a part of it. So you now buy a part of it, okay? Based on your need. And it is elastic. So if, for example, you are a retailer and Monday to Friday, your business is not, you don't have too many people on your site, then you will not pay too much money because what you are going to be using in terms of processor or space will be limited. But maybe on Saturday, you have a lot of people on the site. Then they will increase the bandwidth for you. They will increase everything you need for you. Pay as you go. So infrastructure is now pay as you go. Software is pay as you go. Processor is pay as you go because everything is in the cloud. And you don't have to worry about security because Amazon has taken that headache of your wahala. It's no longer your headache. I hope I'm making sense. It's no longer your headache. So with cloud services, it's easy to set up a business. It's easy to set up your infrastructure. It's easy to set up everything because it's all click and drag and drop. So Mary is starting a new business. I need space in the cloud. I will just pay. I'll tell them how much space I want. I'll tell them the kind of package I want. I'll just pay. I'm good to go. I don't need to go and physically buy a server. I'm good to go.
Yeah,
so
we
business
already use that on our phones, don't we?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Your phone, your WhatsApp is software as a service. So you just go. So with DevOps practices, there are different things we need to know. How the team is now working together. Continuous integration, continuous deployment, and then release on demand. So which means your release is decoupled from your deployment so that you can make your business decisions based on your releases. Let me stop here today. I will send you this link. I'll post this link in the WhatsApp chat just for you to watch. It's talking about the PI planning. I'll post it in the WhatsApp chat. So we've done enough. We've done enough with regards to safe. We've done enough with regards to safe for you to say, okay, I can be a safe Scrum Master. We've done enough, because everything we've done up to this point is already happening within SAFE. So what we have just done now is to look at the SAFE specific activities within the essential SAFE framework. And this is all you need to know. Trust me. If you can remember everything we've done yesterday and today, you're good. You're good as a SAFE Scrum Master. Any questions? Or have I confused you?
No, that was just a follow-up on yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's still a lot of information. So we need to watch the video all over again.
I keep saying it. I keep saying it.
Well,
I know it's a lot of information, but it's information you need. It's information you must have if you want to survive in this environment, if you want to thrive in this environment. Watch the video.
Thing is, it's very similar to program management. The only
But
difference
of course, that's what it is.
Agility. Yeah.
That is what it is. That's why I keep saying program level. Program level. It's program portfolio, and
Exactly. I mean, this is more like program. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Program management.
It is what is happening here that has scaled up.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
calling it scaling now.
Yeah, I know.
Instead of one team, we say we are dealing with about 10 teams. So if we're dealing,
it's strange, Mary. Let me tell you my past experience.
Yes.
You know, when I was at DBT, we came from Agile to Scrum. We were doing Scrum after some time, and then they brought this digital marketing concept where we were now learning digital marketing. So KG said, okay, so now we're going to be doing SAFE. Believe me, I don't think anybody understood what it meant. We already had program management. We already had all those things. Yes. And then he said, no, SAFE is now. What they then said essentially was that we cut down on business cases and all those things, which is true in an agile environment. But nobody got it the way I'm getting it now. Nobody got it. We were just following them like sheep.
KG introduces a lot of stuff, and KG is a marketer.
Yes.
You need to remember that too. KG.
Yeah, and it was good. It's not that they didn't teach it well.
No. They didn't understand it. They didn't understand it well.
Thank you. They didn't understand it well. Yeah. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. It was so confusing.
They did not understand it.
Yes, but now